Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. Guys, Episode 5 of Hawkeye is the topic of today, and it was bonkers. I watched it this morning before work, literally was screaming in my bed at like 8:15 in the morning. It was craziness. That's my first immediate thoughts on it. But Katie, please dive a little deeper beyond it was crazy.
Oh, well, my first initial thought was going to be like, man, I love to be right. I love being right because you know what? First off, I do love to be right in general. But second, so few times are we actually ever right with Marvel. And I mean, I like that. I do. I like the aspect that you catch me off guard kind of thing. However, sometimes I just like that little bit of sprinkle, that little bit of, you got this one on the nose kind of thing. And I would say I almost called every single thing that came out of this episode. Even from small things, like, and I know this wasn't necessarily like a big, but I knew Yelena had been dusted all the way back in Black Widow. I called it.
Yeah, you did.
I think I said in our predictions episode of Black Widow, I said, I'll bet you she was dusted. I said it right away. I mean, granted, there were a lot of hints to that afterwards, but way back when. I mean, Kate's mom? Man, I called that from episode, 2. I said she was so suspicious, and I know last episode was already like, you're getting there. But then it was like, this one obviously confirmed. There are so many things I love to be right about. And I even said about Yelena, how once she found out about why she was hired and stuff, I knew she was gonna start to flip. Boom, happened. I was like, I couldn't be more amazing in this moment. That's how I felt watching episode 5. Everything that was going on, I was like, I did that. I knew that. I saw this coming. So, bestie duo? You see bestie duo, Kate and Yelena. Called that! It was such a good episode. And we were eating good.
It was, I'm just gonna say it. Unless something really, and we've said it all this time, but now there's only one episode left, unless something magically tragic happens that I really, really hate in episode 6, Hawkeye, far and away, has blown every other live-action Marvel show out of the water for 2021. The show that I will admit I was least excited for takes the crown by miles for the best executed, the best written show of 2020. I mean, it's just, I feel like I'm glowing. I just don't even know how to express how happy I am with this show. I can't even tell you. It's just, I feel like I just walked out of a movie. This show as a whole makes me feel the way I feel when I'm leaving the movies. And that in and of itself is a massive accomplishment.
You know, this is what I said to someone earlier today. I said, the serotonin I got when we saw what we thought could be Pietro show up at Wanda's door in WandaVision is what this entire episode felt like.
No, scratch that. It's what this entire show feels like.
Oh, for sure. But that moment of oh my God.
Where we ran around the house.
This entire episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Where you're just sitting there and you're your mouth dropped open kind of thing. I was literally sitting in one of my academic buildings and I'm just trying to eat my lunch and watch Hawkeye because I skipped a review session for a final. And I literally was just the entire time. And then when it finally, the episode, I don't want to say finally ended, I was looking forward to ending. I wasn't. But when the episode ended, I literally was just I was just sitting in the chair and I swear if anyone walked past, they're probably this girl's insane. Because I just looked up and just started laughing. Because it was so good. Little upset I didn't get an end credit scene. Not gonna lie.
Me too. I kept looking. I looked 4 times. I was no, where is it?
I literally let it play out because I didn't believe it. I let the entire thing play out.
I didn't have time to do that, but...
Well, I also was in shock and immediately went to Twitter. So I was like, okay. But enough with this. Let's start. Let's break right into it. And I want to break right into this show doesn't miss with their opening credits.
Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. I'm watching, and I knew you weren't up yet. I was like watching at like 7:30 this morning, and I
was not.
Yeah, I know. So I like have this, I think I turned it on at like 7:45, and I'm like, it opens with Yelena, and I'm like, oh my God. And I like, she's wearing the same suit from Black Widow. She's talking about her sister. She's freeing the I think the other Black Widow was already free. Like, she was just kind of doing her own thing. But, you know, she's there and they're doing all this. I was like, this is amazing. And then she goes in the bathroom like, oh my God, this is the moment. Like, we're going to get the confirmation. We get the confirmation that she was dusted. She comes out. And it's like 5 years later, and like the moment that broke me was she's like, I need to find Natasha. And I'm like, oh my God, I like can't. I was like, she's gonna find out her sister's dead, and I can't do that.
What hit me the most from that scene was not even that she was like, I need to find Natasha, in the sense that I need to make sure she's okay and that what just happened to me didn't happen to her. It was the fact that she knew her sister. There was no way that her amazing older sister, because the pedestal she puts her on, that just happened to her. She knew her sister lived through that. At least the actual dusting. You know, like, she knew. Because it was the confirmation of, I need to tell her I'm okay. I know she's fine. I know, because I'm sure she just saved the world. You knew that she knew that her sister wasn't a victim to that and was going to save and help people and had done that. You just knew that she knew that her sister was a hero. And like, so she was just like, I need to tell her I'm okay now. And it just was so sad too, because someone pointed this out on Twitter, and I noticed it, but they put it into better words, because I don't think I put it fully together. But it was like, the last thing that Yelena talked about before being dusted was her sister, and the first thing she was worried about afterwards was her sister.
There were tears streaming down my face. I was laying down. I was in my bed. So it like started running down my neck. I was like, I don't know if it was that part of the Hawkeye part, but I was like, I am literally soaked in tears, and it's not even 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, she acted it so well. And, you know, this is something that I really have enjoyed, is that we're finally seeing the back end. Because something that kind of frustrated me for a while with Phase 4, because we saw it in WandaVision with Monica. And I really liked it, but Monica was this newer character to us, so I think it was a little different. Versus, we then saw it with Yelena, someone we've now been introduced to, we love as a character. And something that was frustrating me a little bit with Phase 4 was that they talked about it, never really talked about some of the, and like what was really happening to those who were dusted. Like, I mean, in Endgame, boom, they snap, all the Avengers come back, we fight Thanos, yay. And it's like, okay, we haven't discussed what it was like coming back for some of these characters. I mean, even Spider-Man, I'm kind of like, he just kind of came back, you know, went back to school. Like, they talk about it a little bit, but not really in the sense of like, what it really was like. And so I really like that we're seeing that. I mean, it also kind of like annoys me because, like I said, they would talk about like, oh, the snap, the blip. I mean, even down to the Eternals, like, so I'm glad we're seeing it. I'm glad we saw it with a character that we've been established with, because that makes me feel better. And I think personally it filled in a hole of, I think this is how she got into contact with Valentina. Because her friend, that Black Widow that was freelancing, she was telling her about how to get hired out.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me.
You make a good point. That's a good connection, that we almost see the line being drawn between that Black Widow who was there. I mean, thank God they were still in that house. Can you imagine if Yelena comes out and it's not a familiar face? Like, I was thinking about that. I was struck by that because, like, to your point, we did see Monica come back into the same hospital chair where she was visiting her mother. And so luckily she had the benefit of, like, health professionals being there. And she didn't wake up in someone else's house, you know? Like Venom. He, like, woke up in someone else's bed.
Well, Venom, that wasn't...
Right, but he wasn't, like, fully conscious of those 5 years, right?
Well, okay. Venom, that's a different story, but Venom was not necessarily... That's not necessarily a snap blip.
I'm just saying he was there 1 second, and next thing he knows, there's someone else occupying the room. In that sense, it is similar.
Yeah.
Whatever he does in between those 5 years, that's TBD. Who knows, right? We might find out during Spider-Man. We don't know. Who knows? But all I'm saying is, like, he woke up in a spot that had now been occupied by another person. In Yelena's case, at least it was occupied by someone who knew her and, like, was able to, like, gently re-enter her and, like, gently tell her, like, this is what happened and you became a victim of this and now you're back and you blah, 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 blah. So I was really, like, struck by that and how, like, she was actually able to, like, get almost like a crash course of, like, the snap and the blip and, like, this is what happened. So I thought that was interesting also.
Yeah, and then, you know, moving right into the episode, I think the first prominent scene we really see is Yelena in Kate's apartment. Because obviously we see Kate talking to her mom.
Yeah, to the scene with Kate talking to her mom. I thought that was, like, so interesting because you and I, it's mostly you, but I've agreed with you, have been suspicious of the mother for most of the show, right? I thought it was interesting when they had that scene because they're almost trying to, like, throw you off the scent by showing her being a good, caring, loving mother and, like, taking care of Kate's wounds and talking her off the ledge and telling her, like, it's okay, whatever you decide to do, blah, 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 and, like, being that comforting, mothering figure. When at the end of the episode, like, Kate has that, well, first of all, she has that bonding moment with her mother at the beginning, and then at the end of the episode, she finds out her mother's, like, low-key evil. So I thought that was, like, a very interesting dichotomy because at the beginning, we're showing her being the loving mother, and by the end, she's revealed as a villain.
I think, unfortunately for Kate, and what might be hard for her to wrap her brain around, is, like, her mother towards her is not inherently a bad person, you know? Yeah. And it's, like, and she's not okay, I don't say she's the world's best mom in the way that, like, she treats Kate, because unfortunately, you can see, I think, within the past episode and the episode before, that her motives, her business, and whatever else she's involved in comes before her daughter.
Agreed.
Because you see that, I mean, that's why she doesn't want Clint to keep her daughter involved. She does care about her daughter, but she cares more about the fact that she doesn't want her daughter seeing what she's into, and she knows they're on that trail. I mean, she got her own fiancé somewhat arrested for the sake of saving her own butt.
That's what I wanted. Okay, so I know we're skipping the Yelena scene, but I know we'll go into that in depth. So I just want to go right into the Jack arrest scene really quick, because these two scenes obviously tie together. Because at the end of the scene, that's the heart-to-heart between Kate and her mom. She obviously says, you know, this is what we found out about Jack. He's not who you think he is.
Yeah.
But the way Jack gives his little monologue, like, oh, honey, like, I'll be back out. This is all a misunderstanding. Part of me thinks they're in cahoots.
Yeah.
That, like, she didn't really sell him out, but was like, look, you need to make this look good for my daughter. Like, I need her to think that I put the foot down because you're, like, not actually this good guy. Like, maybe we'll get you, you know, exonerated later. Or perhaps their boss, which I'm sure we'll get into, has ties with the NYPD or FBI or whoever it was arresting him, who's gonna get him out and it's not gonna be an issue. But he was so smug about it. Yeah. I was like, they almost seem like they're in it together.
No, I caught that too. It definitely, you can tell who holds the power in their relationship from the get-go. I'm sure it was to your point, you need to do this, throw her off the case in the sense that you look guilty enough and you can move forward then, and we can move forward. So I'm sure to that point, yes. And yeah, I mean, the entire vibe in that moment, you just were like, okay. Because you just knew, like, he seemed too suspicious. Unfortunately, I think Kate was too, I don't even know the word I'm trying to look for, like, because I don't want to be, like, happy. But I guess we'll use the word happy for the point, and trying to she thinks her mother is upset, although it didn't even seem that her mother, like, I just think she was too distracted by what was actually happening, and that she somewhat was getting what she wanted, even if it was a very indirect way of going about it.
Yeah, like, she got the validation.
Yeah, and so she wasn't really paying attention to the fact that her mother, not that good of an acting job. Jack, not that good of an acting job. So it's almost like, you know, when you get tired of looking over your shoulder for so long that when you think you don't have to, you become so, like, not careful that it's just, like, you ignore even the most blatant signs in front of you. So it almost, like, that, it gave me that vibe. And, you know, we'll get into I would like to almost finish the storyline through the episode with her mother, but I feel like we can't without going through some of the rest of the episode because of that big reveal at the end. Both, it's like, not even the big reveal character based, but even with Yelena, like there was a big reveal in a lot of different ways. So let's move right into that Yelena conversation.
Let's do it.
Loved it. Besties. Here for it. My
She's
favorite
so
duo.
funny.
One fork only. Like,
let me break into your house and make you mac and cheese. Oh, you done? I'm going to put the hot sauce on now. I just was laughing so hard. Yelena just steals every scene she's in. She's so freaking funny. Like, Florence Pugh, that casting, magnificent.
Oh, yeah.
Probably some of the best casting in the MCU. People, want to talk about how amazing, like, Chris is as Thor, or, like, Tom is as Loki, or any number of, characters. Obviously, RDJ as Tony.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't not say RDJ.
Literally people who embody their characters, like, put her up there. Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, like, she is up in the highest echelons of casting in the MCU.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think it's very interesting. First off, I love the whole, I'm not going to kill you. Because I could have killed you the second you walked out. Yeah, the second I walked in. Like, I just like that the two of them are like, Kate's trying her best. Like, Yelena's like, you've clearly never done this before. Like, I just think it's hilarious, the combination of the two of them. And even in that moment where Kate's like, I'm probably gonna die, or she's gonna kill someone, like, something bad's gonna happen here, she's still hilarious. And then mixed with Yelena, I just thought their, dare I say, vibes were immaculate. And I think it's interesting to see Yelena's point of view, and as a Black Widow stan, and now obviously, well, I guess I could still say a Black Widow stan, but as a Natasha and now a Yelena stan, I find it very validating to have her sister fighting for her, to have Yelena fighting for her sister, because if I say for her sister to fighting for her sister, it wasn't going to sound right, to be noticed. And I think that's something that has always been, like, a thing, kind of, for Black Widow as a character in the MCU. It was to be noticed. And when she sat there and she was like, my sister saved the world. Because you know what? She's right. Anything else could have gone wrong, yes. But at the end of the day, Nat was the only one, and I'm not coming after any Tony stands in the sense that, because I will say there were other people who could have snapped and Tony could have lived, and I know it was for his character arcs or whatever, but Nat is the only one who truly gave herself fully, because had none of them been able to do that, and Hawkeye wanted to, whatever, but she saw that situation and knew what it was for. She wasn't just saving his family, she was saving hers, because she knew. There's no way she didn't look for her sister.
Yeah.
So it's like, at the end of the day, she gave her life and she goes unnoticed. I mean, even in Endgame, she didn't even get a funeral.
Yeah.
Like, Tony got his funeral, she didn't. She still looked over, and she was the only reason they got that soul stone. So, and I think they're the only duo who could have gone and genuinely gotten the stone, was Hawkeye and Nat.
Yeah. I mean, they were the only ones who had a strong enough bond.
Yeah, exactly. Who were still around. And so, I just, that line really hit for me when she just was like, my sister saved the world. And I also, the other line that really hit for me was when she was talking about Clint, but I kind of took it as Avengers as a whole a little bit, when she was talking about, he's got blood on his hands.
Yeah.
He does all these great things, you call him a hero, but what about all the things he does that's terrible? And granted, was he going after people who were probably not great people? Yes, I'm not going to say he wasn't. But she doesn't lie when she says that either. That, oh, you call him a hero. He's so amazing, right? Well, what about all the people that he killed? What about his past? So, she made some valid points.
Yeah. I think in some ways, too, she's almost, like, projecting her own history there.
Yeah.
Because she obviously feels the same way. And I actually think it's interesting that she chose to attack Clint in that way, because that's the one way she can understand. It's the one way her sister could understand,
right,
was the red in the ledger.
Exactly.
They've all got the red in the ledger, and they all understand each other for exactly that reason.
No, I agree. And so I thought she was very interesting in her points there. Love that she can't just walk out a door. Big fan of that.
Yeah. Also, I love how she brings up Alexei. I love how she's like, my dad says, and I was like, oh my god. It made me so happy.
I just was like, beautiful. Although that brought up to me, I was like, where are they?
Yeah, where are mom and dad?
And also, I did see someone point this out, and I noticed it, but I'm glad someone else pointed it out. If you haven't been able to tell, I like to be validated in my feelings. She wears her makeup like her mother. Especially at the beginning, you see the long eyeliner, and like it comes from the underneath. She wears it like Melina.
Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah. But, like, that brings the question to me of, like, where are they?
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. It's a good question.
And I think that's something I would like to be fulfilled. Marvel, that's my demand.
Yeah, tell me where Alexei and Melina are, please. Because they're one daughter down, so I would hate to think that they're gonna let go of the one they've still got left. Biological family or not.
Well, and I mean, no one has confirmed about their being dusted or not.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I don't put it past Natasha to have looked for all of them.
Yeah.
So that's why...
I was just thinking the same thing. That point makes me think that they were all dusted.
Yeah.
I would think she would have brought her family closer than not if she was able to locate them. That's why I think they were all dusted.
Unless she just simply wasn't able to locate them because, to be fair, half the population had just died. They were still looking for Black Widows, so...
I would think they would reach out, like there would be a mutual desire to ensure that the other person was okay.
I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying, to play the devil's advocate there, it's like, they were under very, like, you know what I mean? Like, Black Widow's whole job are to disappear half the time.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, so then we see the scene. Okay. We're inspired. I love that Kate sits there and is like calling Clint.
Oh my god.
Like, she's like a crazy girl when the boyfriend isn't answering the phone after a while, and she's just like she's like, Clint, I really need to talk. I can't tell you this over the phone. Like, I
love it. She's like, I hate that you made me this crazy person. I'm like, this is fantastic.
She just was, this really was Kate and Yelena's episode in the sense of just, I think they had more screen time than Clint.
Yeah.
Which I get it. Okay, the show's Hawkeye, but...
Can we talk about the one really intense Clint scene? Well, but other than the fight scene, the scene that made me cry as hard, if not harder, than Yelena's return from the snap and asking for her sister, when he goes to that plaque in front of Grand Central, which, by the way, I literally... pretty sure I walked by where that plaque would be in real New York if it was happening this weekend, because I was all over the Grand Central area, so like...
Well, weren't we also just there?
Yes, we were.
That literally was where we were, so we were just there.
I know, and I was also there again this weekend, so I've been there the last 2 weekends. Woo! Yay, real life areas. Anyway, so he goes there and he uses that as like a vehicle to speak to Natasha.
Yeah.
And just like how he's talking about how he tries to live every single day to honor what she gave him, which you and I have spoken about so many times as a reasoning for why they're not going to kill Clint, because it again negates Natasha's sacrifice, because she gave him, I mean, and he says it himself in this scene, she gave him the life he's currently living. He would be dead.
Yeah.
So it just moved me. I was crying. I was like, this is a lot, and I'm really sad.
And you can't make me fall in love with him as a character just to have taken... Because, like, not that I ever had anything against Clint. However, I just kind of was like, Clint's just there.
Yeah. You weren't particularly attached.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Was I at first one of the louder voices on the It Should Have Been Clint crusade? I was. But, you know what? From the get-go, Black Widow was probably my favorite Avenger from the first time. I mean, what was the movie I saw in theaters? The first real movie that I got connected to was Age of Ultron. She was my favorite. I mean, immediately I loved Wanda as well. But she was my favorite. And, you know, while time has passed, and obviously I have loved many different characters, to this day, my boyfriend still makes fun of me because he said how embarrassed he was when I was sobbing during Endgame, because he was like, you were so loud. And I'm like, oh, what? They just killed my favorite character. Like, but I literally, like, Tony's death, no offense, no feelings. But sitting there watching Nat, I was like, nope, can't do this today. Didn't think I'd do this today. So, you know, seeing all that, I'm just like, you can't have done what you did and made me love this character, and really seeing the connection that they did have more than even when they were both on screen together, and then rip that away. You just can't.
No, I agree. And when he said, I just needed to talk to you, I was like, the waterworks started. And then I was like,
oh, I know.
I'm not doing well today.
I know.
I'm still tearing up just thinking about it. I was like, he's going to this place because he needs to talk to his best friend who literally sacrificed her life for his. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what he feels. And like, it just tore me to shreds. I was like, no, I'm not okay.
Well, and what I think is really interesting is then after this scene, bleeds right into the Ronan scene with Echo. And I knew that was coming, and not beforehand, but like when he was like, so you have to forgive me for what I'm going to do, because the whole thing was Natasha stopped him from being Ronan. And so clearly that was going back on the fact of, you know, you stopped me, you pulled me away from that ledge, which is clearly why he felt bad about doing it. But I thought it was really interesting, and now I don't know if it was said in the podcast episode, but I do know I included it into a blog post, that the connection between her, Echo, and I keep forgetting his name, starts with a K. Can't think of it again. Kazi.
I always want to say Keely, so I'm so glad you remember what his name
I always
actually
want to say
is.
Kari, and I don't know why Kari is the thing.
K-A, insert a letter I. That's what his name is.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I think it's because, like, his real name's, like, Fra Free or something like that, and I think I just hear the R and I just go with it. But, so, I think I said it somewhere in the blog that there was a rift between the two of them, and you saw it within the second episode, I believe it was, and it's going to be important for later on, and now we've seen later on.
Yeah, because let's talk about that. So they have their fight scenes, pretty epic, it's pretty great. And when Clint reveals that the reason he knew to be there was because there was a mole in the organization, and immediately you're like, you know, Maya knows who it is. And then she like kind of confronts him, but like doesn't, where she's like just kind of prodding, like, is this really happening? And then when he has no response to why he wasn't at the meeting, she's like, it was you. You killed my freaking dad. Like, you told the Ronin where my dad was.
Well, but not even. Can we talk about what he actually says, though? And not to say that, but you know what I mean? He says that the boss instructed him.
Which, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we talked at length in the predictions episode, and I think in episodes 1 and 2, because it wasn't clear at that point yet,
right,
what Maya's comic book arc is, which is that she's the adopted daughter of Kingpin, and, you know, it's because Kingpin actually killed her father. Well, they're going a lot closer to the comic storyline than we thought.
Yes.
And immediately when Clint said that, I was like, oh, so they brought it back home. Like, they deviated, and then they were like, sharp left, we're going back home. All good now.
No, exactly. Because they essentially, instead of directly having him kill him, he did the indirect route. But that's why I thought it was interesting when Clint sat there and was like, I'm showing you my face because we're the same person. And I thought that was so interesting. And when he sat there and told her that, like I said, this entire episode, even almost every single part of it, even if you want to give me 50%, I called something about it. And this, I called just as much, where I sat there and I was like, there's a rift there. There's a reason that there's a rift there. And at first it could have been like a power grab kind of thing, which it sounded like it was.
Yeah.
And that is still possibly why, you know, Kingpin thought to use him.
Can I also just go back for a second? Looking back, because hindsight's 2020, the conversation that Clint and Kazi had in the car, it's so familiar, right? They're so familiar with one another. He knows where he hides the gun. He knows where he hides the knife. He knows where he hides there was one other weapon.
Yep.
Like, now looking back, I'm like, that wasn't their first conversation.
No.
Like, maybe Kazi doesn't know that it's not their first conversation, but Clint sure did. And there was, like, a familiarity there. And so now I'm like, oh, that puzzle piece is now firmly in place. Like, I get it now. Like, looking back, like I said, that hindsight, I'm like, that conversation now looks completely different with this new information.
I agree. And can we talk about how well constructed this show is? Because moving back, I would say, what, episode 2? Tracksuits, bad people. We don't like them. First off, though, the tracksuits jamming in the car, loved them. But second, anyway, moving on.
So funny.
I literally was like, yes. But we're seeing this, and we see Echo come in, and we see Kazi, and we see her organization. Then we're hearing about Uncle, and we're like, okay, so there's a top dude. We see her pass. We see her wanting the blood of Ronan. We see all this. and how perfectly this torch gets passed to be like, okay, now she's off the trail of Ronan because she's got something bigger for her to worry about, and she knows it wasn't even Ronan to just show up that day. It's like, she even knows it was like, you were genuinely, kinda, quote unquote, just like doing your job.
Yeah, like I was just gonna say, like, he's the vehicle, but there's someone else who's directly responsible and pointed him in that direction. If he's the gun, someone else aimed that gun, and she's going after them now.
Exactly, and I like how that helps phase out a little bit Echo and the tracksuits to open up for this final episode. Well, first off, I mean the ending of this episode of the big reveal, of course, but then this final episode finally being, like, not, I don't want to say free because that's not the point, but it moves into that last little bit where they were like the means of the end to get there, but it was so perfectly done, and it built perfectly on Echo.
Yeah. Can we also talk then about the big reveal? Because I think we're basically there anyway, in terms of chronological scene-wise and what happens in the show.
Yeah.
But also, before we talk about it, so you could feel in last week's episode when they were having the rooftop fight, it was almost like the two storylines were fighting. You had the Yelena storyline and you had the Echo storyline. But what I think the big reveal showed us this week is that they're not two diverging storylines. They're two branches of the same tree. And the trunk of the tree is none other than Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. He's back!
Well, and what I want to say is, before we get into that, really quick, it deals with it, but, so Hawkeye knew of him.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find really interesting, too. Because he even went on the phone with his wife, which I thought that whole phone call was a little weird in its own way.
I agree. I don't understand what Linda's role is.
Well, she did used to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So, there's, like, that's how she has connections and stuff.
Okay. Thank you for filling in that blank for me.
Yeah. But, for me, I just kind of was like, I like her as a character, but, like, if she's not there, I don't understand her need of inclusion. And I get, like, at first it was like, I don't feel like you're far enough away, like, this is getting out of hand because now the big one's gonna be involved, like, blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of got off kilter a little bit and got, like, strange, so I just was like, okay, whatever. Because he was like, you have to forgive me for what I'm gonna do. And I was like, but you didn't really do anything. Like, you didn't kill anyone, or you just kind of, like...
It was, like, controlled Ronan.
Yeah, and then, yeah, so, but whatever. But I did think it was very interesting that he knew of him, and he was, like, avoiding it. Like, I think is a very weird thing.
Yeah, it's almost like he knew it was too big a fish for him to try to reel in. Like, he knew he couldn't quite bring it down, like, by himself.
Yeah.
The whole organization. Because Fisk has his hands in so many things. Like, even in the place, and I clocked this, I was like, oh, he's coming. When, in the place where Echo and Ronan / Hawkeye fight, it's like big guy tire or big guy car service or something. I was like, they're basically screaming at us that he's coming this episode. Like, I was like, okay. But it's just another way to show, like, he has his, hands in so many pots that it's not just bringing down the guy, it's bringing down the whole organization. And I think even as Ronan, Hawkeye was like, one, that's too much work. And two, like, I'm one man. Like, is it actually going to make a difference if I try to take this guy out? Or am I just going to get myself killed in the process?
Well, exactly. And so, like, now Kingpin's here. Okay. Let's talk about how this reveal happened, because as I said earlier, there is a lot of depth to this final scene.
Agreed.
For one, Kate's mom is involved. For two, obviously Kingpin showed up. We've got Kingpin in the MCU. That there's a lot of repercussions to this in general. And for three, it is a turnaround point for Kate. Or not for Kate. Well, yeah, for Kate, but for Yelena was who I meant to say. But for Kate. Not so much a turnaround for Kate, I should say it's more of that...
It's a revelation.
Yeah, and my thing, and I think I said this at some point during one of the episodes, is that this is Kate's decision point.
Mm-hmm.
Because every hero has a decision point on whether they choose to continue to be a hero, or they either stop or live the villain origin. And because almost every reason a hero is made is the same thing that a villain gets made from. You know, everyone has that choice to take one path or the other. And this is Kate's point right here, where the only family member that she has, that she even like knows of most closely, her mother, is now involved in something that she knows is terrible and has a lot of repercussions. So it's like, this is the moment Kate decides, and it's like, all I think about is when Clint, of all people, of Ken, sat there in Age of Ultron to Wanda and said, you walk out those doors, you're an Avenger, or you can just sit here.
Yeah.
So I think of the same idea, because this was Kate's obvious coming of being an Avenger finally kind of thing, and same gist. It's the, you decide to go in and fight this, which we know she does because the Rockefeller Plaza scene. We see it in the trailer. That's not a spoiler. We see it like in every trailer. But that's that moment you decide what you want to be.
All right, I know too, Kate, like you had a point about Yelena and what that scene reveals about Yelena and her turn at the end of the episode.
Yeah, so going into it, obviously, what jars her initially is Kate's comment about, like, have you ever thought of the person who hired you? Like, what their whole thing was.
Yeah, like they have a motive too.
Yes, so what's interesting is Yelena took that line to heart, and instead of going after Clint further at that moment, took a step back and said, I need to know more about this.
And that, I think, is what separates her from the widow whose house she was at when she was dusted, because obviously that widow didn't care. Yeah. She was like, well, I have this beautiful house. And I mean, maybe she did later because she had a child and she got married. So I think she kind of evolved past that mercenary point in her life, though right. She clearly still had the contact. And that's likely, to your point, how Yelena hooked up with Val. However, I think because of Yelena's relationship with her family and especially her sister, she is more cautious about who's telling her what to do. And also the other widow clearly wasn't under the mind control, because when they did the dust, she was like, what are you doing? Like, why now you have like dust all over my really pretty rug, you know? So I think it's a combination of Yelena's relationship with her family, but also having been unable to control her own mind that makes her a little more suspicious when it comes to people hiring her and wanting to know exactly what their motives are before she goes in and does something she might regret.
Well, and here's my thought process. Valentina obviously was the one who told her. So Valentina's a middleman, which is something I think we were really unsure of after Hawkeye, or after Black Widow and going into Hawkeye, was kind of where Valentina stood and why, when she has, well, U.S. agent, and now she has her Black Widow, why she's sending them out after, like, what her own motive was. She clearly doesn't have one. She's clearly a middleman, and my question is she the middleman? Does it go Kingpin, Valentina, and then Eleanor? Or is Valentina kind of just, for lack of better words, a hire out agency?
Oh, is she a freelancer?
Yeah. Kind of like, oh, I got my people.
Yeah.
You know, I got my people, you want them to do something? Because here's my thing. I could see Kingpin wanting Hawkeye out of the game. I could see Eleanor wanting Hawkeye out of the game.
I don't know that, and we've talked about this before, I don't know that they want Hawkeye out of the game.
Right.
I think they might want Ronan.
Okay, let me clarify. A lot of times I forget to call Clint by his name. I meant just Clint in general. Mainly because, to be fair, I always just called him Hawkeye. I kind of just never really called him Clint. But my thing is I don't think Valentina is at the mercy of Kingpin. I don't think the point, like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see Kingpin wanting him out of the picture as possibly Ronan. And now I could see Eleanor, if she's helping out, a part of Kingpin's things, whatever, she's a pawn just as much, kind of being like, I want you to, because, I mean, to be fair, the trail will come back to Eleanor, right?
Yeah.
Trail doesn't come back to him. If he's like, hey, I want him taken out of the picture. Well, guess what? Now her daughter's got a stake in it. So that's why she's got to meet with the big man. Her daughter's got a stake in the whole, well, now we want him taken out. Because I think this is Hawkeye's best kept secret that's not kept secret.
So I was just going to ask, so you think that people know now that Hawkeye is Ronan? Do you think they've known all along?
I think to a degree. I mean, keep in mind, he hired out Ronan before. he's been involved with him.
I wouldn't say that he hired Ronan.
But you know what, but he's used him to his advantage
He used him when
before.
he was useful, and now he's not useful anymore, so he wants him gone.
Right. And the build comes back to Eleanor.
Yeah, and I guess if you think about it, going back, and we talked about this, I don't remember what episode it was, but we definitely chatted about this, how the photo that Eleanor shows Yelena...
Valentina.
Yeah, sorry. The photo that Valentina shows Yelena is Clint unmasked, but I believe in the Ronin suit. So a lot of people know his identity. Clearly, whoever hired Valentina, meaning Eleanor, and subsequently going up the ladder, her boss Kingpin, they all know his identity, which makes it even more interesting when Clint was in their apartment, because now that conversation is so different because she's like, stay away from my daughter, full well knowing she hired an assassin to kill him.
Well, here's my thoughts. So first off, we're starting to possibly have a timeline. Because when Valentina gives her the assignment, when she's talking to Kate, she's like, oh, I'm just in the city for business. She just got there. I can't think it was too hard to track him down, because it seemed like she found a lot of information about Kate rather quickly. And so, and I mean, Clint Barton, are you kidding me? She didn't need to look for him with where he lives. It was so much easier to just find him out and about. He's essentially a celebrity. So she knew where she was being, and for all we know, Valentina was like, this is where you'll find him. They knew. I mean, first off, you have to buy tickets for advance for Rogers the Musical. Like, that's how Broadway works. And so, it's very possible they just had the information. I mean, I doubt he uses fake credit cards. He's not that deep into his own disguise. So, she came in for business, which means usually when you get an assignment, you go on the assignment, which means the grave scene is not that far away from when she ended up in New York.
And if you think about it, she's in Ohio, right?
Not that far.
That's actually been confirmed. That's been confirmed. I saw a map. I don't know if it was a Marvel-based map, but I saw somebody did a map of where things happen in Phase 4, which I was super interesting and helpful, and I meant to send it to you, and then I forgot. But
I thought you were genuinely saying, like, just finding out where Ohio was really helpful, and I was like, it has bordered the state we grew up in forever.
No, I may not be the greatest at Midwestern geography, but that I understand and know. Anyway, moving on. She's in Ohio, and, she's dressed in a fall jacket. So let's say maybe mid to late fall. This is a week before Christmas, a couple days before Christmas, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks max for her to maybe she didn't want to take him out at home. Maybe she didn't want to take him out in front of his family. So gives her some time.
She was gathering her best moment to strike and kill. That's what a widow does. Yeah.
Exactly. Finding the moment where he's going to be distracted, not on his home turf. Like, I'm sure he has his farm protected.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he has all kinds of, whether it's booby traps or whatever it is, that farm is protected. So she doesn't want to get him on his home turf. Let's get him when he's on vacation, when he's not paying attention, when he's with his kids, in the busiest city in the country. Like, it's a perfect time for a Black Widow to strike. And also, it could be done anonymously.
Well, and she doesn't need the collateral. That's why she even said to Kate, she said, if I wanted to kill you, I would have killed you. I'm not here for you. I'm here for Clint. I want to kill him.
Oh, speaking of collateral, how about when she literally loses it when Kate accidentally calls Natasha collateral?
Yeah.
That was the one time I was like, Yelena, your danger is coming out.
Well, and that goes into her whole thing when she was talking about, my sister saved this world.
Oh, yeah.
So, I get it. But I think it's really interesting because, like I said, Valentina, to me, is now kind of striking me as she's kind of putting together her Avengers, but she hasn't fully put them together yet. I'm sure things got a little messy because she probably had the plan and, the snap happened. Who knows? And so it's like she's putting together her little team, but until that moment that she can put everything she needs together, she hires them out. Doesn't seem like that hard of a thing. I mean, and if you're told the people you're killing are bad, this one had a personal stake. So at the end of the day, it's like, Kingpin tells Eleanor, hey, I need this. Take care of it. Boom. It's done. There's the person that hired Yelena. And you could tell in the text even from Yelena that that's her, Because Kate doesn't know. Well, she does now, but Kate didn't have suspicions about her mother, didn't know she was involved, and now this goes even bigger because now we've got Kingpin involved, and that's the head honcho. That's the big guy, quite literally.
Yeah. And it also answers our age-old question, how did Kate's mom keep the apartment?
Oh, yeah.
Well, working for one of the most powerful men in the underground of New York. That'll do it for you.
Oh, yeah.
The only question that remains is, what did Armand do to tick off Kingpin? Because that was Jack.
Additionally, though, I had the question of, and I think this was the same, I feel like it was brought up at some point in the episode, and I can't for the life of me, I think it was Kate, when she was talking about, or to Yelena about, well, who's the person who hired you? Why do they want Clint dead? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That because of who he was, and because they know, they don't want him coming back, and he's got a lot of information.
Yeah.
That's the worst part, is not even, like, who he kills, it's the fact that he's got the information. And, I mean, if Kingpin maybe wants to use Echo, hear me out in the sense that it doesn't go under the rug that Clint told them, or said to Echo, that they were both weapons. And Kingpin knows it. If he wants to use her to his advantage, having someone who knows the information that he got her father killed will not go over well. And I mean, if they're staying this true to the comics, it doesn't. She does not want to work with him anymore and turns herself into a better direction.
Well, and that would fall in line with what we know is coming for her show.
Yep, exactly.
She'll be somewhere in the hero, anti-hero sphere, where she kind of, I would actually see her kind of falling in line with a Daredevil.
Yeah.
Kind of a little grittier, but ultimately doing the right thing.
I mean, she also grew up in essentially like a mob/gang thing. So yeah, I agree. But that's why to me it's like, it makes sense why he did. And Eleanor is probably his favorite little pawn. But she gets everything she needs from it. And I mean, that's what I brought up to you earlier, I think, when I was even talking about Kate's mom being suspicious, was, out of all the things she could own, she owns a security company that has endless amounts of information. She's got eyes all over the city. She's Kingpin's guy in the chair, almost. In the sense of, she's got all the information.
Where do you think the photo of Clint unmasked as Ronin came from? I'd bet you $1 million it came from Bishop Security.
Yeah, it's probably from a street camera. And there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly, though. And that's why it was so personal to her to get Kate removed, too. Because here's the other thing. She needs to talk to Kingpin because her daughter's getting involved. And even though now she thinks her daughter's not involved, well, now her daughter's back involved. And the issue for that is, she might not always be the best parent, but she doesn't want to lose her daughter.
Yeah, I agree.
And she knows Kingpin wouldn't care. That's the thing.
Oh no, he's ruthless.
Yeah. And the thing is you can always be his best in command and always there for him doing what you need, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be what he wants. And if her daughter gets too far in the way, she's collateral damage, if that's our favorite word from this episode.
Yep. I could not agree more. It's just all coming together. This episode, so good. This show, even better.
I agree.
I'm just so happy.
I agree. And I mean, the thing is like, obviously we'll be able to talk about this once the show concludes further. But it's where is this going to end? Because the thing is Kingpin, we're not going to see his downfall here. The point of bringing him in here is to open him up for later things. Possibly once Daredevil gets fully rebooted, or my hopes would be the Spider-Man realm once the college trilogy comes, since Kingpin is a very well-known Spider-Man villain that we haven't fully, we've never seen in like a Marvel, like a full Marvel. We've seen in Daredevil, but that obviously with rights and, the Spider-Man rights debate. But obviously, he's not going to be the downfall. This was all to lead into him. But, like, where's Eleanor going? Because now we've got Kate, who knows too much. Yelena, who's like, no. Which could be interesting, because if she's going to be part of the Dark Avengers / Thunderbolts, she's not going to be particularly happy about, or Valentina's not going to be particularly happy about Yelena botching her mission. And so we got that, and now it's like, okay, we've heard that the ending of Hawkeye is supposed to be, like, really bad. So what is going to happen here?
Yeah, it's gonna get, the poop's gonna hit the fan next week. And I just don't know that I'm ready for that.
Like, right before Christmas?
I know. That's why I'm like, don't ruin my Christmas over here, Marvel, because
yeah, that was
so
bold.
far your show has been stellar, but, like, let's not give me an anti-Christmas present.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So it's like, we've got a lot that has just come to light and a lot that's going to culminate, and
Can I say something that's going to make you angry?
You always do, don't you?
So I know you've refuted this before, and we've had this conversation, but I really am struggling to think that they brought in Kingpin a day before people are first able to see Spider-Man in the US, and he's not there. Like, that to me, like, in that movie, I don't know, the timing to me is just so suspicious, especially because, and I know they partially did this because the new Star Wars show is coming out, but they combined episodes 1 and 2, and now this lines up. So I'm kind of like, if they hadn't, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, I totally understand your argument that, like, people don't always watch the show right away, and, it came out early last night in the UK, and I think that's a totally valid argument, but there's another part of me that's like...
No, I think it comes out early today. I think it's today it comes out.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I guess because we're seeing it tomorrow, or I'm seeing it tomorrow night, that I just took 2 days. And I think that's a totally valid argument. There's a part of me that's like, okay, but, like, this is such a big reveal.
Here's my continuous rebuttal. As I should. First off, if your proposition is partially to include him in the Sinister Six, no. Not at all.
Can we get a cameo? Okay, maybe he's not going to be in the Sinister Six, but can we get a cameo this weekend? That's the question.
My issue with the cameo and him being brought in, other than the points you've already said that were my arguments before, is also that this is such a big movie. We've already got 5 villains, with a 6th that we do not know yet. We have possibly, and we better, have 3 Spider-Men. And, we've got a lot on the line. We got the multiverse. Like, bringing in Kingpin here, I think would be a really stupid move on Marvel's part. Because I just think the big drug lord of the underground. Haha, Green Goblin's flying around and Doc Ock's coming here. But we got Kingpin. Like, no offense, in the grand scheme of Spider-Man No Way Home, no one cares about Kingpin. Because he is just not gonna be that person. Like, you tell me, Venom, for example, comes flying in, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. But, like, Kingpin, he's getting set up in Hawkeye for the future use. I just don't see it here. I don't see it for Spider-Man.
That's fair.
I also, we got one picture, and they're gonna be like, oh, now all of a sudden Kingpin's in Spider-Man? Like...
That's fair. I didn't think we could close the episode without discussing it a little bit because, we talked about it being a possibility if he did come in this week, and he did. So I just felt like it just had to be addressed for a couple minutes.
Well, for 1, 2, we haven't even actually heard the man talk. We had that, one line in episode 2 with Echo when she was, a child. And also, we might not in the next episode. The point is to introduce him, but he's not the main villain, ironically enough. He is to the point where, hey, he's the head honcho. But they're not going to be trying, like I said, they're not going to bring him in to take him down in an episode in 5 minutes. They've got future works for him, and I'm, like I said, hoping really Spider-Man for his college trilogy. He's one of them. But he's got a future.
Yeah.
But it's not the Hawkeye show.
Okay, I just had to get it off my chest.
And I had to really aggressively rebut that.
You really did. It's okay. I'm going to forgive you for it. But that's it for me. That's all I had to say.
I think I agree.
All right. Well, guys, it has been an eventful, for us it's Wednesday, you're going to hear this on a Friday, but it's been an eventful day in Hawkeye land. Really, really fantastic episode 5. If you couldn't tell, we were kind of taken by it.
Heck yeah.
But there's a lot going on this week, so we're going to wrap it up because we know you guys are busy maybe watching some other stuff this weekend.
Yeah, if you're seeing it today, because now it is Friday when you would be listening to this, or you're seeing it tonight or tomorrow or whatever, yay. Heck yeah. This is a great week for us. I think I said it earlier with Hawkeye, but we are eating good. This is a good week.
Yeah, it is. And, if you are a fan of the show, but you haven't subscribed yet, and you want to make sure you don't miss our Spider-Man No Way Home reactions episode, go ahead and click that subscribe or like button on your platform of choice so that you get notifications depending on the platform when we do release an episode, and you can keep up with us that way. Also, we do have a special playlist profile on Spotify with songs from the shows and movies, as well as playlists for each of the shows and a separate playlist for all of our reactions around the movies, so that if you're a little behind on one or more of the shows or any of the movies, you can go in and just give them all a listen. Last but not least, make sure you're keeping up with the blog. We have lots of extra little tidbits in there, extra context and extra things that we forgot about in the episode, because right now we're feeling pretty good about everything we've talked about, but I'm sure Katie and I will be texting in the next few days like, oh man, we totally forgot this. So the blog's kind of our catch-all. If you want a little bit of that extra sauce that we forgot about in the episode, definitely give the blog a follow and check it out.
Yep, and as always, the Twitter, Let's Talk MFT. Make sure you're giving it a follow, updates, theories, whenever there's a new episode and or blog post, everything is posted there. Obviously, I know this week is a little crazy, and some of you might be boycotting social media, which is smart, because I logged on to Twitter for 5 seconds. Yeah, I logged on to Twitter for 5 seconds yesterday because I've been trying to do some Spider-Man polls, just get everyone a little hyped, and possibly saw a massive spoiler within 5 seconds, because Twitter plays videos right away, and someone recorded the movie, or at least the beginning. So, just be careful, but maybe after Spider-Man, like right after you see it, definitely log on and give us a follow, because we are not only talking about Hawkeye, which thankfully brushed my timeline nicely that I didn't see Spider-Man today, but not only talking about Hawkeye, but we will obviously be having a huge weekend talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. And it's very few times that I get to say, and I know I said it last week, but I'm going to say it this week, very few times I get to say this, but Marvel is, and if you've already seen, going and has blown your mind, so let's talk about it.